Welcome to History in a Hurry. Next, by popular demand, we will cover the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, one of the most complex and controversial conflicts of the 20th century, lasted from 1955 to 1975. It was rooted in Vietnam's struggle for independence from colonial rule and evolved into a Cold War-era confrontation between communist and anti-communist forces. The war deeply influenced global politics, reshaped Southeast Asia, and left an indelible mark on the United States and Vietnam. The roots of the conflict lie in Vietnam's colonial history under French rule, which began in the mid-19th century. During World War II, Japan occupied Vietnam, and the resulting power vacuum led to the rise of nationalist movements. Among these was the Viet Minh, a communist-led organization under Ho Chi Minh, which sought independence for Vietnam. After Japan's defeat in 1945, Ho declared Vietnam's independence, but France sought to reassert control, sparking the First Indochina War from 1946 to 1954. This conflict ended with the 1954 Geneva Accords, which divided Vietnam along the 17th parallel into a communist north led by Ho Chi Minh and a non-communist south supported by the West. Tensions quickly escalated between North and South Vietnam. The South, under President Ngo Dinh Diem, was backed by the United States, which sought to contain communism as part of its broader Cold War strategy. In the North, Ho Chi Minh's government sought to unify Vietnam under communist rule, supporting the National Liberation Front, NLF, also known as the Viet Cong, a guerrilla movement operating in the South. The U.S. became deeply involved in the conflict under the domino theory, which posited that if one country in Southeast Asia fell to communism, others would follow. This commitment escalated in 1964 after the Gulf of Tonkin incident, in which North Vietnamese forces allegedly attacked U.S. naval vessels. The U.S. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, granting President Lyndon B. Johnson authority to use military force in Vietnam. American involvement grew rapidly, with combat troops deployed in 1965 and massive bombing campaigns targeting North Vietnam. The Vietnam War was characterized by its unconventional warfare. In the dense jungles of Vietnam, the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army employed guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and an extensive network of tunnels. Major battles, such as the Tet Offensive in 1968, highlighted the war's intensity. The war had profound effects on both Vietnam and the United States. In Vietnam, the conflict devastated the countryside, displaced millions, and caused immense suffering. Civilian casualties were high, and the use of chemical defoliants like Agent Orange left long-term environmental and health impacts. In the U.S., the war sparked widespread protests and deep political divisions. The anti-war movement gained momentum in the late 1960s, fueled by opposition to the draft, rising casualties, and revelations of atrocities such as the My Lai massacre. President Richard Nixon, elected in 1968, sought to end U.S. involvement through a policy known as Vietnamization. This aimed to transfer combat responsibilities to South Vietnamese forces while gradually withdrawing American troops. Simultaneously, Nixon expanded the war into neighboring Cambodia and Laos, hoping to disrupt communist supply lines along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. These actions sparked further controversy and protests, including the infamous Kent State shootings in 1970, where National Guard troops killed 4 students during a demonstration. The Paris Peace Accords, signed in 1973, led to a ceasefire and the withdrawal of U.S. troops, but fighting between North and South Vietnam continued. Without American support, South Vietnam struggled to resist the North's advances. In 1975, North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon, the South Vietnamese capital, marking the end of the war and the reunification of Vietnam under communist rule. The Vietnam War had lasting repercussions. In Vietnam, the conflict left millions dead and a nation struggling to recover from decades of war. The conflict also influenced U.S. foreign policy, making leaders more cautious about military interventions in the years that followed, a sentiment often referred to as the Vietnam Syndrome. Globally, the Vietnam War was a critical episode in the Cold War. It highlighted the limits of American power and the complexities of fighting a counterinsurgency. The war also reshaped Southeast Asia, with neighboring countries like Cambodia and Laos experiencing their own upheavals as a result of the conflict. In retrospect, the Vietnam War remains a subject of intense debate and reflection. It raised profound questions about the morality and efficacy of military intervention, the responsibilities of great powers, and the human costs of ideological conflict. The scars of the war are still visible in Vietnam and in the memories of those who lived through it, serving as a powerful reminder of the complexities and consequences of war. Thanks for racing through history with us on History in a Hurry. If you enjoyed today's quick dive into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a fast-paced trip through time. Please reply in the comments with ideas for our next history lesson. See you in the next one.